Okay, brothers and sisters, before we get into discussing Go Rap in a little bit more detail, there's something that I think is really worthwhile agreeing with when you're talking to someone and giving them dawah. And that is that we should use common sense and reason in order to make sense of the world around us. Now, I only mention that because from my experience of many, many years of dawah conversations, sometimes when you go through Go Rap and you get to a certain stage, a person will start saying all sorts of strange things that don't really make much sense. So if you can agree with them from the very beginning that we're going to be using common sense, we're going to be using reason in order to understand things, in order to understand the world around us, we can always bring them back to that when there is a confusion in the discussion. Now, I often give an example. I give an example of what I call the man in the red underpants. So I often say to them is, well, what if a man in red underpants, nothing but red underpants, he came knocking on your door and he said, I've come to read your electricity meter. What would you say? Well, most people tell me, well, I'll tell him to get lost. I'll tell him to go away. Well, I say, well, why? Why would you do that? And people say, well, because the person who reads the electricity meter doesn't come dressed in red underpants. He wears a uniform. He has maybe a machine with him, or he has some identification to show me that he's from the electric company. He wouldn't be coming in red underpants. So I say, okay, that's fine. So what is the process that you use in order to come to that understanding? Well, eventually we'll agree that, well, it's common sense, it's reason. I use my powers of reasoning. I use my powers of deduction, and that's really what we're doing. Of course, in the case of the man in the red underpants, it happens really quickly. You don't think about it a lot. Some things you may have to think about it a lot more. But it still ultimately is using our reasoning process in order to come to a conclusion. So the point that I make is, well, look, if that's what you use in every simple mundane things in your life, how about when it comes to even more important things, like what religion we should follow, what faith we should have, what things we should believe in and what things we should not believe in? Shouldn't we also use our common sense and our reason, or should we just follow whatever our ancestors told us? Or maybe we should just have faith and believe. No, surely it makes more sense for us to use common sense. Generally, people will agree, yeah, that makes sense. We should use our faculties of reason in order to be able to understand the world around us and the universe around us. So having agreed upon that, then I ask them to look at the world, look at the universe, look at everything around us. Doesn't it seem as if our world and our universe is organized? Doesn't it work according to amazing systems and intricate laws? Don't we find within the universe and within the world patterns repeated over and over? Look, for example, at the alternation of the night and the day. If we think about something really simple like that, if the Earth was spinning really fast on its axis, well, night and day would be so quick, the sun wouldn't shine upon the Earth's surface enough to heat it up, and you wouldn't have any night either. So if you think about it, life as we know it really depends upon a certain length of the day and a certain length of the night. If you think about it from another angle, if the Earth was moving really slowly and the sun was shining constantly, say for a year or 2 or 3 years on one part of the Earth's surface, and the other part was in darkness, say for 2 or 3 years, then what would happen? One part of the Earth's surface would become so hot and the other would become so cold. Life as we know it probably would not exist. Then think about the size of the Earth. If the Earth was much bigger or much smaller, the force of gravity would be either too great or too little. Even the composition of the gases in our atmosphere, the right combination of oxygen, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen, the balance of these gases is so important in order for life to be able to exist. If our Earth was much further from the sun or much closer to the sun, either it would be too hot or too cold. All of these things show that the position of our planet is so finely tuned in order for life on it to be able to exist. And we find this repeated again and again and again. There's something I discovered quite recently, that the position of Saturn is in such a way that it actually, the gravity of it drags various meteorites from space away from our Earth. And if it wasn't there, and if its gravitational force wasn't that strong, we would constantly be bombarded by these meteorites and probably life on our Earth would not exist. Look at these combination of factors. It is like a precise mechanism. And when you think about the vastness of space, you think about the huge size of our galaxy, this type of precision becomes even more amazing. And we have examples like this repeated again and again and again, within ourselves, within the animal kingdom, within the universe at large, the very different forces that operate within the universe, the very forces that existed at the beginning when the universe was supposed to be being formed, they were so precise, in such a precise manner, that if they were different, even by the minutest amount, then life as we know it would simply not exist. All of this seems to suggest that there is a type of precise engineering, a great intelligence and precision and systems behind this universe and this world in which we live. Now, doesn't it make sense? Doesn't common sense tell us that if we see things working according to laws, according to systems, according to patterns, that there is something that made those systems and those laws and those patterns? Does that make sense? Or does it make sense? Is it reasonable? Is it common sense to say that this is a product of some random event? Did the universe create itself? Are we the creators of it? Did it come from nothing? None of those explanations really make any sense whatsoever. They are not rational at all. What then is the most rational explanation for an organized, systemized universe that works according to such beautiful systems?